Os YouTube. So DMC2 exists like many games because the first one did so well, except Hideki Kamiya was busy, so they handed it off to some new hires that were working on arcade games originally, and it was originally directed by some rando who is still unnamed to this day. So instead of trying to actively replicate what had happened before, they tried to translate the spirit of DMC into this sequel. They did a bad job. Devil May Cry 2 is a notoriously bad game, and I don't think I can say any more than what's already been said, but if I had titled this video, I played Devil May Cry 2 for the first time, yes, it's really that bad, you'd be all over me as if I was actually offering you my virginity, so let's do it anyway. This is a review for Devil May Cry 2 on the PS3 on the first HD collection. I realized they made a new one. Interesting, it doesn't matter until the end. The game opens up on another moonlit night, giving us pretty much the same Sparta legend as the last one, but with a new addendum at the end. After aura farming for a bit, this mysterious woman demon hunter seems to be our most recent client, and she tells us where to meet up next. I don't know if giving us less exposition than the last game is more intriguing, but I am just as engaged. We get another action shot to start off this game proper while it literally drops us into the gameplay. Running around, there's not much different from the first game yet, but jumping for the first blue orb fragment you see dials us into the fact that Dante learned how to double jump all on his own. Well, that's nice. And as we come to our first set of enemies to fight, we do the funny guns only meme and we move on. But wait. Our second set of enemies shows us that the meme isn't just a meme, it's actually built into the game. The flying enemies in this game don't really float around you like the ones in the last game, so you really do have to just gun them down most of the time. And it's never going to stop. But if you look at this door, you find our first secret mission. In terms of locations, overall they're just on par with the last game, but the timing is better at least, no backtracking here. The secret missions themselves are now only battle arenas with 2 waves of enemies that you need to complete 2 of before you get your blue orb fragment. And luckily enough, they top off your health and DT meter with orbs when you get done with them. And as much as I want to hold you by the hand through this game, I don't, so well, I don't really blitz through anything on this channel, do I? So let's walk at a brisk pace. We meet up with our mysterious demon hunter, but it was a trap. But not by her or the granny who actually wants to hire us. No, it was by Arius, who through the demonic power of capitalism and the summoning ritual of an actual demon, has done a form of satanic gentrification to their little island town. Redundant sentences aside, Dante flips his coin and it's this lady's lucky day because she gets head and he takes on her request. We run through demon-infested underground catacombs, town streets, and a seemingly abandoned harbor until we make our way into the thick of the city. And other than this new type of location, things have been pretty normal for a Devil May Cry game, but now... So, demon tanks aren't a bad idea inherently. They could be fast, mobile, do cool spin tricks on you, but these guys don't do that. They just stand still and shoot you. Now, this type of enemy is a first even in this game, but I bring it up because fighting in this game overall is just as ass as they are. For example, you don't buy new moves in this game. You start off with Stinger and High Time and that's it. You do, however, still have combos in this game, but they're even more finicky than the last one, which is impressive in its own right. Instead of pausing during an attack, you input a direction on the control stick to change your combo. It happens, and I see it, but it never really feels right. It always feels like my timing is off. There is only one combo I can consistently do other than the neutral ones, and it's the stabs in the Devil Trigger, which we'll get to after a quick chase sequence. Just gonna make my way up this burning hotel. Now we leap from rooftop to rooftop, realizing that the platforming in this game isn't much better than the first one. Now that that's done, the infested helicopter is the worst boss fight in this game, but that's only because by the time you get to another one similar to it, you should have more Devil Trigger than you do here. Your basic DT meter works the same as the last game, harder, better, faster, stronger, but you can't taunt to get meter back like before, and the fastest way to get it back is to actually get hit. You know, it feels a little counterintuitive to the nature of a game that still grades you on not getting hit. So you end up fighting this chopper that never lands, and you're forced to use your DT to interact with it in any meaningful way, be it flying up there to smack it with your sword, or gun it down with your bullets. Bullets that are way too loud, by the way. I will not blame the lack of sound options on this game, but the time it came out, and the PS2, just because I'm a little petty. It's had it too good for too long. And seeing how I mentioned it briefly, let's talk about the ranking system now. This time the game actually does grade you on style and item use, so now you're actually being graded on an average than losing nebulous points that you can't see. But for me, it still has its bits of unknowns. At least the style does, because I don't get it in this game. I couldn't get past a D once while playing. The only difference in this game than before is that it's more sensitive to disappearing your style meter. You'll lose it if you get hit. If you miss an attack, it will disappear quicker, and it will disappear slower if you dodge your way around than if you just run from enemy to enemy. It's weird, and the lack of cool moves and cool combos makes me not want to think about it at all, so those Ds might be my own fault. But on with the game. We have this cool CG cutscene into another god-awful boss fight, if I'm perfectly honest. It's mostly shooting again, and then halfway through it splits off his head, and it's annoying to hit still. Where would I even find orbs in this boss arena, or get a good combo going on this floating head? See, this is why I actually don't care for the combo rankings in this game. But thankfully, just like the last game, your combo ranks are only there to give you more orbs, so it's nothing to truly worry about. We catch a flight to an oil rig, maybe. Either way, it's some sort of industrial level and it's pretty dull, so we're going to use it to talk about how we power up, because in this area, not only do we get a new sword, we get a new Devil Trigger ability and gun as well. You find the Flame Heart, which makes your Devil Trigger use flames instead of your default electricity. The elemental weaknesses in this game are one of the few things consistent with the last one, because I still hardly notice their effects, but you also unlock abilities like Flight or Speed. And Flight's the only one that really feels worth it because you can use it to skip some platforming. You can also find gems to upgrade the power of one of your buffs like health regen or damage. I'd say most of these upgrades are neat considering you have to go out of your way to find and unlock some of them, and you do get to mix and match which ones you use. It's not the craziest thing in the world, but it's a little cute. As for our weapons, they're easier to talk about because, like I said, you don't buy skills. You do get different swords, however, in this game, but they have basic attributes to them. Rebellion is normal, you get a big, strong, slow one in this mission, and the last one is just long and wide. You power up your swords from a base damage increase, but apparently affect your elemental secondary effects as well. Lightning rains down more lightning bolts so you get more hits. Fire lingers to do more damage, again, really hard to notice. And then there's a secret third thing because we haven't gotten it yet, and it's at the end of the game. So, yeah. I've sadly played this game multiple times, yet I had to read up on this information because it's hard to see with my human eyes. Yet on the other hand, you actually do get different guns in this game like last time. Along with your handguns, you get the shotgun, a rocket launcher in this mission, and another gun later in the game. But the lack of unlocking moves makes leveling up in this game boring. Just make sword and gun stronger. Boo! But let's get back to the story and meet face to face with the main villain of this game, Aureus.
What have we here? Do you have to ask? Maybe another time.
This game's a little dry, isn't it? He summons this fiery Minotaur boss, and to be honest, he's the best one so far, but it's not hard to beat stationary poison serpent, so the bar's pretty low. And now that he's out of the way, we have to make our way out of the factory or we'll blow up. This is where we pick up the rocket launcher. Also one of the most trickiest blue orbs in the game if you're watching like a pro or speedrunner do this, because you forget that you're able to fly and you can just get it. Or maybe it was just me. It was probably just me. The overall flow of this game is kind of weird because I think right now we're just trying to make our way back to the city, but we have to make our way through these inconvenient random ancient ruins to get there. It starts off with this awkward challenge of hitting these switches, but the soft lock on this game is somehow worse than the first one, so make sure to clear the area so you can use the speed boost gem. But then they make you fight another flying boss, doing a big disservice to giant flying moths everywhere. This boss never falls down and it sends out larvae that pop out and eat you. They don't even do that much damage, it's just annoying, and letting them eat you is the fastest way to kill them. Everything about this boss is ass backwards. I actually hate it here. And somehow all of this was before we actually entered the ruins, and this game feels like it's actually becoming a bit of a platformer. Jumping everywhere, outrunning a boulder, messing up this puzzle and not getting the heal gem because this game controls like ass. Really? I tripped into the hole and I didn't have my flight gem on to get out of the hole? Oh, I just fall into a boss fight? Oh, you're lucky this boss fight isn't half bad? It's fine. But what isn't fine is this physical challenge. It's not the worst thing ever in the world. You just gotta time your helm splitter just right if you run out of double trigger. It hurts my eyes. I think I'm getting a bit of a headache. It's not the worst thing, but I don't like it. I don't like it. We run into that other demon hunter who has a piece of something. Why are we here again? We have to stop Aureus, but what does that actually mean anyway? What does he want exactly, and where are we gonna kill him? Kill the demon he's getting power from? Did I miss something? Either way, the girl seems depressed, but that's for later. We beat another boss and meet back up with Granny. It seems the girl, Lucia, that's her. Have we heard her? Lucia's ran after Aureus herself, and Granny wants us to go after her. Dante flips his coin again, and Granny still gets head, so we run after Lucia.
Your lucky streak continues, Granny.
I think now would be a good time to tell you all that DMC2 originally released on 2 discs. There's a disc for Dante and a disc for Lucia, and you can see how their stories intersect and diverge with a few of their own personal sections in their levels. For example, in the very first level, Lucia runs through it backwards and goes up the church's bell tower that Dante jumps off of. We pick up another item, so I guess the first one before we get to the first CG cutscene. Again, when Dante goes off into the catacombs, Granny asks Lucia to pick up more arcana like that sword she found in the clock tower or that cup that we got in the future. So let's cut through and see if something interesting happens between now and then. While we skip through things I don't really care about, I think now's the time to tell you that Lucia doesn't really play too differently than Dante. Her rate of fire is slower because she uses mostly knives, but her blades are categorized just the same. She has a bomb, I guess. That's slightly... no. Oh, that's what that hole was for. I guess the artistic level design was pretty good. This stood out to me with Dante. Oh, thank God, our first revelation. It occurs when Arius runs into Lucia at the factory. She got here first and meets him when he lands on the platform. He tells us that she's a puppet he created and threw away.
I don't believe you.
Huh? He just asks for the arcana Lucia's collected, like she's suddenly gonna give it to him, but she doesn't. And he wants it because it will grant him ultimate power like Argosax. I guess that's his master. He then zaps Lucia to the Shadow Realm. Oh boy, that escalated quickly. But no, it's not the Shadow Realm. It's just the fight with the fake Mothra, damn it! And then we're transported to the ruins where we have the return of swimming mechanics. Luckily this time it's third person. Unluckily, they ask a lot more from me than DMC1 ever did, so I skipped it. But my misfortune won't let me go because the next mission is still in the water. Ooh, this room is neat. I really like this effect. And we've met back up with Dante. Alright, comment section. What did we learn? We learned of Arius' actual plan. I feel like we should have picked that up in Dante's story, but alright. We learned that Lucia is a clone. That's fair to be detached, giving us a reason to play as her. Alright, that's neat. And I think that's about it. So our conclusion is that this story doesn't really make any sense and it is told very poorly. Well, we aren't done yet, so it could get worse. We suddenly cut to the top of the Ouroboros building, the one that Arceus owns, with Lucia faking her way in, but Arius sees through her and calls her by her true name, Kai. But she rejects his claims and chooses to live and die by the name her mother gave her, Lucia. That's just a really dramatic way of saying that she had a boss fight that even if you win, she loses, so Dante can come in and have his boss fight and fumble all of the arcana on the floor so Arius can get what he wants and we're thrown to the city below. Now we have to make our way back up to the building through the worst level in the game. They want you to run around this warped version of the town areas of this game, and you have to find 5 orbs to hit to unlock the front door. It's not just that this is the largest area in the game that they decided to make you play hide and seek in. It's not just that they put these orbs in weird locations. It's not just that they surround them by enemies, so your soft lock on is always messed up and you are wasting your time and you can't get a move on. It's that they also put them in weird places. Who the hell put this shit in the air? I really want to put my hands on them. I just want to talk to them. Lucia's placements aren't that bad. I think they learned their lesson. And then Phantom's here for some godforsaken reason. I'm assuming they ran out of time because... I'm kidding. That's not an assumption. The next mission's pretty interesting because it's just a time to battle arena. Wait, no. That's annoying actually. What's actually makes this interesting is that you hit enemies into this ground lump and you unlock a new Devil Trigger ability. Hitting enemies into the bump sucks, but the Chrono Heart slows down time on sword hit unlike the last game that fully relied on your magic meter. This is actually pretty neat. Also, if you fail to meet time the first go around, they make the second time easier with easier enemies to kill. The next level is running through a slightly confusing building where you have to find the Ice Heart if you remember where to go, unlike me, but it has another awful shooting boss. Well, I saw a video that you can hit these guys with your sword when they get close enough and it does massive damage, and I'm sure your elemental amulets do even more damage, but I hope you save up your Devil Trigger so you can take some hits. I still don't think I've ever played a DMC game that wanted me to use Devil Stars as much as this one though. If you are in DT and you're fighting a boss, it feels like your damage isn't worthwhile. Also, these last two levels feel like a waste of time for Lucia because she doesn't even fight Arius in this stupid building, only Dante does. They might as well have not bothered, but I guess her final power-ups have to be somewhere. Just like Dante shouldn't have been in the ruins. Padding. But speaking of Dante, Arius opens up his crazy sky portal, but he isn't able to gain ultimate power because Dante switched out the coin arcana with his own. I don't feel like the portal should have been opened if he didn't have all the items, but whatever. Also, Arius seems a little goofy all of a sudden. A very well-known but fun fact of DMC2 is that about halfway through production, Hideaki Itsuno was brought on to be the new director of the game because not a lot of work was getting done, and they needed this game out in 6 months. Something I'll get more into later, but if you ever feel that there's a real hard turn in this video game, that's because there was one during the entire development. Anyway, we have another whatever boss fight with Arius. Did you have fun in this boss fight, Arius? Oh, say your one-liner, Dante, and get us out of here.
King? Yeah. Here's your crown.
We meet back up with Lucia, who asks us to kill her out of fear of losing herself to her demonic puppet side, but before that can happen, the door to the demon realm opens up despite the ritual being incomplete. At least the game also acknowledges that. Well, this opens us up to the first and last cutscene of this game. A crying Lucia says that she will go and seal the gate from the inside because she's expendable, but Dante flips his coin one last time and it lands on heads. He decides to go instead, saying the classic line, "Devils never cry," and gives it to her as a promise to come back. The story flips again, so let's flip a coin to see who we follow. This is a bit, it doesn't matter, we're following Lucia. Because Arius isn't completely dead. He's turned into a monster and we have to beat him up. Watch out for his command grab, you can't break out of it even with DT. I was trying to test something, I promise. And then we get another boss fight where the monster's insides now reflect their outsides, and yada yada. Mundus did this better and was less annoying about it. Let me hit you like a normal boss, come on. What's Dante up to? Oh, it's worse in here. Why, oh why is this game filled with enemies that are so hard to hit with my sword? I hate it here. These hitboxes are trash, and even if they weren't, these attacks are annoying. And why the hell is Griffin here? Well, after this mess, we have our final boss battle with Megalomax. They're pretty cool. I wish they weren't in this game because it still sucks to fight them, but I can show off at least one last neat trick. If you wait for your health to reach 10% before going into Devil Trigger, you activate Dante's Majin form. It's way stronger than normal, but like I said before, a game that grades you on taking damage shouldn't be rewarding you for taking damage. Also, it's not like the 10% goes up with your health growth when you collect blue orbs. Your health goes up to 200%, so you're popping Majin at the same time throughout the whole game. If the 10% actually moved up, I think people would have figured out this form naturally, instead of, healing like a normal person. Anyway, we beat Vax Machine, but it's not good enough to seal the gate, so Dante rides his motorcycle further into hell. In Lucy's disc, they find out that Dante's coin is double-sided, and they're amused at his machismo. And then, after beating both campaigns, there's an extra scene after the credits. You get a scene of Lucia waiting for Dante at Devils Never Cry, thinking about the story of Sparta returning from the demon realm, and she runs out after hearing the sound of a bike outside, ending our game. I really want to talk about this ending a lot because, oh boy, I can't wait. I'd like to say that I keep my narrative analysis bits self-contained to the game or previous games that have came out in a series, but I like to do some jokes here and there. I might review some games out of order, Sonic the Hedgehog, and have I reviewed a game on its own that's not related to anything else? Yeah. But basically what I'm saying is, if there are certain readings of this game that are bolstered by novels, future titles, and anime, misinterpreting the ending because you didn't want to play as Lucia, that's not gonna be here. I'm going to tell you that the reason Dante acts so subdued in this story is because the producer thought DMC1 Dante was too much. I mean, he did pull himself through his own sword and then aura farmed for a bit, I get it, but DMC1 Dante is no Spider-Man. And while Dante here is more standoffish, he still shows off just as much. He's not even less mouthy, he's just not as fun about it. He won't laugh. He takes himself too seriously, and that's the real difference. Both DMC1 and DMC2 are about cool guys being super strong and flashy doing cool things. What you're seeing are the very slight differences in what people think is cool, but they both fundamentally come from the same place, trying to express the same thing. But those small idiosyncrasies, personal differences, can change a whole mood of a work. It's why people still create art even to this day, even though we've ran out of original ideas. Because whatever you make will be personal to you even if you're just trying to copy someone else. It's part of the reason why this game is so boring. But we can get more meta and philosophical later. Let's talk about the actual story. DMC2 is a simpler narrative than the first one. Dante gets a job from an old lady to go take down a crazy CEO on this small island, and that's about it for him, to be honest. There's nothing really to dive into in his character or plot. You can make some argument about after defeating Mundus that Dante started to take his role as a demon protector from his father more seriously, but the end of 1 does the same thing and doesn't really explain the change in character. DMC1 Dante is in his late 20s, early 30s in terms of age, so this change isn't really indicative of anything within this game alone. That's not to say that people can't change after their 20s, it's just more risk aversion. You'll be making the same unfunny jokes you've been making since you were a teenager for the rest of your life. Then you have Lucia, who does have something of an arc, but just like Trish in the last game, it's not really handled well. You have a girl who's just trying to prove to her mother that she can handle their own problems by herself. But in the middle of it all, she finds out that she's not related to her part demon warrior protector tribe, but is in fact a man-made demon puppet. With this new information, she continues doing what she's been doing, but now with a twinge of reckless self-abandonment. But at the end of it all, in the best scene, Dante tells her the same thing he told Trish, but this time Lucia gets to put those words to good use and beat the man who created her and threatened her island. While her story is similar to Trish's, Lucia at least has a narrative about staying true to herself despite her origins, than Trish choosing to change in spite of hers. The final scene between Dante and Lucia is the core of Devil May Cry, and it resonates the best, and Lucia being an actual playable character means she has enough screen time for her story to really set in, no matter how poorly it's actually told. Arius is lame. He's just a generic bad guy at the start, and then someone felt like giving him a completely different personality at the end just for the sake of what I assume is a joke. How did the voice actor feel coming in for the final lines just to be told to wing it? The voice director had to be grinning like a polecat knowing they were going to ruin this character that someone probably thinks is a cool villain, but his actual wants and desires are nothing. I want power. I think nothing of the creatures that I make. He really is like Mundus, but again, less fun. Once again, this game shows you how character expression can change the perception of an already done idea. I find it funny that this story was freelanced to someone outside of Capcom. Not the craziest thing in the world, but if you look at the bare bones of it, this narrative isn't out of place in the realm of the series. It fits really well into it, to be honest. Dante gets in for a job and he plays off the demon that chooses their own way to live, but again, stuff in this story just kinda happens. Characters just end up in places for no reason. Even if Dante and Lucia are in different campaigns, they don't explain what's going on at all that well in either of them. You don't learn Lucia's name until you get out of the ruins and have to go save her. Plot points just don't get fleshed out either, like the Arcana. An example, the clone Lucia idea is pretty cool on its own, but they don't do anything with it until the end of the game. Lucia sneaks into the building disguised, but that doesn't matter because Arius wants her there anyway, and they only show up in the final boss fight with Arius as Dante. There should have been a boss fight with one of them in the middle of the game if they really wanted that plot point to mean something. If not, they could have just had Lucy's demon blood go out of control without the whole puppet angle in the first place, to be honest. Because this story is mostly character driven, it's a little dull because our characters are pretty boring. Dante just wants to find out lore on his dad, and it's neat that he puts the world first because that's what his father would have done, but it's not really exciting when the coolest part of the game, going to hell, is at the end and we don't see it. Well, it's DMC2, so it probably wouldn't have been that cool to begin with, and I don't want to go in Satan's butthole again. As stated before, Arius is a generic bad guy with like one cool animation, Halifax is cool looking but still a nothing final threat, and Lucy has an interesting plot point to her but it doesn't get used well. Then you add on the dull and stoic tone that's all over this game and it's pretty rough to get through. And then you have to do it twice, which should be cool for this type of video game, but it's not fun, so it's not. But finally, let me rant about the ending. Do you know people for the longest time thought this game was at the end of the timeline because Dante went to hell and the game said you can never come back from hell, disregarding the fact that the game tells you that his father came back from hell? Despite the fact that Lucia runs outside after hearing a bike outside of Dante's office, his office that hadn't shown up once this entire game? But I get it. That's a secret ending that only unlocks after you do both discs, and most people wouldn't and shouldn't play both discs of this game. And personally, I don't know what kind of novelizations or side materials that came out that made people think this way, but in this game alone, why would it not be Dante outside? We last saw Dante on a bike. Lucia runs out after hearing a bike. I don't care if you don't see him. You have enough context to put 1 and 2 together. The only thing I could personally find that would help push this rumor along is the Devil May Cry 3142 graphic arts book. The titling implies chronological orders, but in the interviews, they joke about where they'd put 2 not because of the time continuity, but because Dante's character doesn't make sense. They joke about it being an alternate timeline than it being at the end of it all more than anything else. When I got to the end of the game and got the final cutscene, I always thought it was weird that people said this game takes place last, and that's as a person that played this game last in the series before 5 came out. You have no idea how mad I was that DMC2 was the last game I could play in this series. It's why I play games in release order now. Well, I got lucky that DMC Devil May Cry came out and wait, no, that's not lucky. I mean, it's fine, but like, I got lucky that DMC 4 Special Edition came out. If there's one thing that I think is a little interesting, is that I think the contemporary setting of this series is displayed probably the second best here. In the last one, Dante went to an old spooky castle, and the only way to tell when it was taking place was in the first cutscene. Here you start off in an old church and run through a more rural part of the island, and the European Gothic nature of this series slowly turns into something more modern as you slowly push forward into an area with skyscrapers and factory buildings. That slow transition is what helps it blends together, even if I do find the area and monsters you fight in it boring from a gameplay perspective. Honestly, it's the ruins that awkwardly stand out in this game. You just kinda end up there no matter who you're playing as opposed to the catacombs earlier in the game that connect the world down to the city. The factory is pretty dull as well. The core area is kinda neat, and I always like the idea of a train or a rail car where you fight enemies, but it's, again, just kinda boring. I like the idea, not the execution. The city itself is full of tanks and choppers, and you make your way up a hotel. At least the final area is a hellhole of corporate buildings, so it's pretty normal stuff all around. But that final area, other than being a inverted version of the areas that we've been to before, is just an office building with random faces and organ rooms, and it's just kinda bleh. But for a game that had a bit of a different direction in terms of coolness, the storyboarding and framing of some cutscenes are pretty cool though, especially if it's after a boss fight, like with the Minotaur, or the very final one in the end. There's some good wallpaper material in here. That being said, I'm pretty sure the art team is the most consistent thing from 1 to 2, the modelers, the artists. Even the music's pretty consistent. It gets a bit more of a rock vibe, but the one thing that I really didn't get to express in the last game is the level music. That's where that gothic feeling comes from, a heavy use of organs groaning in the background, really just to give me anxiety. And as much as I like to do my whole bit of, oh man, I don't like it, it's really doing its job, I really don't like it, even in DMC 1. When I listen to these soundtracks, if it's not a battle music theme, I'm not using it in this video at all because it does just give me anxiety, and that's not great to listen to when I'm talking. Yes, it is definitely perfect for the gameplay, and it's good, I can say that, but I can also say that I would not listen to this on my own time, and I do not like it. I'd never change it. I'm glad it is the way that it is. I just don't like it. And to criticize it just a little bit more, while yes, it's doing its job, it does make a lot of this stage music just kind of blend together. And I feel like I can even say that for the cutscene music in this game, which is something that I can't say for DMC 1. That cutscene music was memorable and emotional. I can only really say that for like Dante and Lucia's cutscene at the end. That really made me feel something. I was like, oh, this music's very interesting. Everything else is either this droning that sets up to a peak or this rock music that's generic for whatever battle Dante is doing. And honestly, if that's as bad as the game got, oh man, people would not remember it the way it is. We have to now talk about the gameplay, even though that seems to be the last thing that they worked on. So I told you guys about how this game was made, right? The consolidation of their arcade and console divisions because, you know, arcades were dying. And you'd think with a lot of arcade guys on DMC, it'd be, you know, really cool. Except, like I said, it was a bunch of new guys that were doing this with no real direction. Somehow, even though you got a bunch of arcade guys on here, this game became less arcadey than the last one. The animation in this game is a marvel to look at, but you can't cancel out of any of your moves, at least not like in the last game, not that I know of. They're also really slow and sluggish just so you can really look at them, but it means the gameplay is really slow and sluggish. In terms of just pressing buttons, this is at the bottom of the DMC list, and it's not even close. We've gone from having 2 weapon types to 1, and even then the differences are just speed and length. Sure, the swords in the last game may have had their own issues, but at least there was some narrative or some interesting mechanics behind them that we don't even have here. And then there's the guns. I wonder what they were thinking when making them so strong and the main focus of a lot of interactions, but I know. Do you guys know that out of all of Dante's weapons, early Dante's mostly characterized by his guns? Guns that I'm pretty sure have never changed since the start of the development of DMC in general, you know, back when it was supposed to be RE4. Makes sense, except it's not really fun in a game like this, is it? Now, I don't want to say most enemies are focused around your guns, but I think I'm gonna say that most enemies are focused around your guns, and it was a mistake to do that. It's boring, it's uncool, it's brain dead. I made that joke about Griffin in DMC 1, but I still had the choice to smack him around with my sword if I wanted to. And then your handguns are way too overpowered for their own good, so there's no point in switching off to anything else. Who needs the blowback of the shotgun when Ebony and Ivory can lift enemies by themselves? The submachine gun is too weak. The rocket launcher is too slow. The gameplay slowly turns into waiting for your DT meter to fill up so you can get things over and done with faster with your devil bullets. Speaking of Devil Trigger, let's talk about that. I think the stuff they added is kinda neat, if mostly underutilized. The elements are whatever, the skills are only situational, the buffs are negligible. Damn, didn't I just call them neat? I guess what I'm saying is that it doesn't make me upset. What does make me upset though is getting meter back in this game. It's like plucking a nose hair, hard to grasp and painful. The Chrono Heart is cool if a little underwhelming. The flying around is neat but ruins the level design. Not that it's all that good in the first place, but let's move on to that. The level design is dull, both to interact with and to look at. I might not like the way it is in DMC1 all that much, but at least it's more interesting there, and it asks you to pay attention. Here though, you got long streetways, annoyingly wide areas, and flat-footed catacombs. The ruins are somewhat interesting, but it's the only thing that really stands out. But as stated before, you can just fly and not bother with any of it. Oh, and I also think it looks ugly, and there's a water section that sucks, so I don't know how they made a water section worse than the first game, but I'm pretty sure it's because they made it longer. They also put all these switches at different heights in a room with enemies that steal your lock-on focus, and it's like pulling out my teeth. It's all on a timer too. Who did this? You know what? It's been years and I skipped this section, so I can accept that I might have been doing something wrong, and I'm a little stupid. I think the most Devil May Cry area in this game is in the skyscraper. You're running up and down halls, up and down elevators, trying to figure out which way is forward while moving different keys to different doors. Never really liked this about DMC, so it's not doing much for me personally. And then the secret missions, as I said before, are still on par with the first game, just a little bit. You aren't running backwards, but I do think you will still need a guide to find most of them. And guided content isn't really all that bad, especially in this game where you won't be needing health as much like you were in DMC1, but it's just that the missions themselves are all this same boring kill all the enemy missions. Sure, some of the ones in the first game didn't really teach you their lessons all that well, but at least they tried to teach you some useful tricks. If there's one thing that I do enjoy about the secret missions in this game, is the fact that they do let you go completely wild in them, because they will heal you and fill up your DT meter when you leave, mostly. As for extras, this is the first game to add the Bloody Palace. You fight your way through 9,099 rooms? Okay. What I find funny is that you can choose to go up 1 room, 10 rooms, or 100, and it's really arbitrary. I think it heals you or something. I don't know. I didn't do this. Just make me go up 100 floors and call it a day. You unlock it by doing both campaigns, and it's only for orb grinding. They give you a time-10s multiplier by the number of floors you go up, minus 1 times 10. I don't really know or care. I don't get any. You can change your outfits like in the last game. This time they had a brand deal with Diesel, so they got some jeans on. I didn't play with them at all. Here's a picture if I remember to get a screenshot. But I think the best thing in this game is that if you play the game as Dante on hard mode, you can unlock Trish, which is something that I'm surprised that I did. In the European version, you could just put in cheat codes to unlock all of this stuff. If you're playing on the old PS3 version, you can set your game system to European, and then you can put in the code and it'll work that way, but it's just automatically there on the new version of the HD collection on PS4. I don't know what version's on Steam. If it's a PS3 game, there's a chance it might just be the new PS4 version. Anyway, back to Trish. She's like an apology for how bad this game came out. She plays like Dante does in DMC1 with Sparta and has handguns. I think she also has Nightmare Beta, but I didn't change my gun out, so yeah. If you do round trip with Sparta, she has Ifrit moves and can do a special dive kick, which is cool. I think you can do a move where she just puts it in the ground and you can just then do combat like that. This game is interesting. It's an enigma. Her DT also just has homing lasers, and it just feels better to play with her overall. If there is one problem with her, her attacks don't stun enemies like Dante and Lucy's do, so you gotta be a bit more careful with her. I got pretty much everything out of my system that I wanted to talk about the game, but let's humor my video title just a bit. Just like this game, I'm pretty bad at doing this whole YouTube thing, so I thought I'd try to be a bit more spicier this time. I don't like DMC2. I do think it's a bad game. When I look at it from every angle, nothing's really too fun, interesting, or intuitive. Inventive? I put an I word in there somewhere. Then you add on the disappointment of coming off a game like DMC1 to make it seem worse than it actually is, because in terms of just basic functionality, you know, as a video game that you turn on and play, DMC2 is a 5 out of 10. Detached from the series, it's boring and mid, and while I'm sure that some people consider that the worst sin any media could commit, Get your head out of your ass. Are you some dogshit YouTuber trying to make a buck on the rise and fall of my dick in your mouth? See how many views that gets you. As an enjoyer of any series, I hope the worst that it ever gets is mid, because then I can still hope that the next thing comes out good. But what's mid to a world that puts slop at the end of every genre, whether they really mean it or not? What's mid to a world that thinks mediocrity is a 7, I'm sorry, an 8, I'm sorry, a 9? I don't know what people consider mid-slop anymore. Words haven't lost their meaning, but they definitely have lost their bite. I'm talking about people's lack of scope. They don't know what quality is, they don't know what's good, and they don't know what's bad. But I don't think that means people need to watch better media, and I also don't think that means people need to watch worse media, like, hey man, you should go out and actually play a 2 out of 10. Nobody's doing that. You're not doing that, dickhead who said that. Or are you actually playing the slop on Steam, the asset flips, the Nintendo AI porn games, the Patreon adult games that never get finished, that credit card companies and banks don't want you buying? Have you played those? Have you played a game that's not finished? It fucking sucks. And you might be going, Hawk, that's not fair, that's an unfinished game. Yeah, but it's a paid product. It reminds me that things can be worse. That's why I still browse certain message boards sometimes. And that's not like I'm saying it could be worse as a way to shield it. Sonic 06 is a worse game than DMC2, but I'd rather play that than this. And that's the scope that I'm talking about. I can recognize two things as bad and like the worst thing. I can recognize something being good and not like it. No matter how many 10 out of 10 experiences you seek, no matter how many 1 out of 10 experiences you seek, nothing's ever going to hurt you like a game that will eventually disappoint you. And nothing's ever going to surprise you like that thing that you never thought you'd like coming out and probably end up being your favorite thing ever. And the acceptance of mediocrity is understanding that that can come from anywhere. I think I lost the plot. What was I getting at? What was I mad about? I was talking about how people don't make sense anymore. Nothing makes sense anymore. Devil May Cry 2 was made with someone else's idea of what an action game with a cool protagonist fighting demons should look like. The team had no experience with designing an actual combat game like that, so they referenced what came beforehand poorly and winged the rest. Someone with the ability to make an actual sequel that could have lived up to the pedigree of the first game came in at the last second, but the development was too far gone and the release date was too close for them to actually salvage anything. I don't think DMC2 has anything to offer anyone as an art. DMC2 doesn't have anything to offer anyone as a video game art piece. But does that mean I really think DMC2 is a 2 out of 10 like my title states? Functionally, it's mid, but the story sucks, the gameplay sucks, my disappointment is immeasurable, and my months are ruined. So if it's on a scale of 1 to 5, yeah, it's a 2, but 10? Not even close. But hey, at least now it has a chance of not being the worst thing called Devil May Cry 2 ever. And even if I don't think this game is any good, it still has its fans. Some people like it, and I say more power to them. Some people might even think it's good, and even more power to them. As for me, I'm going to forget this game exists again and replace my thoughts with one of the greatest games of all time. So be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss it when we hack and slash our way into Devil May Cry 3 Dante's Awakening whenever I get back to Devil May Cry, because I might take a detour this month, who knows. Anyway, until we meet again, Matao, until we meet again.